I will never forget the morning when I came home and saw my father burning a box of my documents. He didn't even notice me approaching. He was standing by the fire pit behind the house, holding my papers in his hands and throwing them into the fire, one by one, whispering he must never know, ever. At the time, I didn't understand what exactly I wasn't supposed to know, but that was the moment my personal hell began. My name is Aaron. All my life, I thought my parents were strict and controlling, but normal. Now I understand. They were people who chose to destroy my future, just to hide their own secret. After that morning, my father began to watch my every move. He took my phone for inspection, forbade me from going out after school, even talking to the neighbors. My mother looked past me all the time as if she was afraid to accidentally meet my gaze, and when I asked what they had burned, my father replied calmly, almost smiling, "Unnecessary things. It's better for you not to think about it." And that's when I decided I would find the truth, even if it destroyed us all. The first real alarm bell rang 3 days later when I noticed that my birth certificate was missing. My parents said they had put it away, but I knew all their hiding places, and the document was nowhere to be found. That night, I lay in my room, listening to my parents arguing in the kitchen. They were whispering, but I caught a phrase that changed everything. "If he finds out, we're done for. Do you understand? Done for." I couldn't sleep. Everything inside me was boiling. The next day, I decided to rummage through their garage, because my father always hid things there. And I found a box, a small, metal one, locked with a padlock. I opened the lock with a screwdriver, and when I opened the box, I saw a stack of old letters, a couple of photos with blurred faces, and a document that looked like a social services report form. My name was on the document, but in the parents column were completely different people. I reread the form 20 times. My heart was pounding in my ears. But the main detail was that there was a note. Boy removed from family due to threat to life, placed under protection, and the date, I was 3 years old. I didn't believe these papers. I decided it was a mistake, some kind of archival rubbish. But it got worse. I found a photograph. Me as a small child, with a woman I had never seen before. Not my mother. Not my mother at all. Different hair, different face, a warm, gentle gaze. She was holding me in her arms as if I were part of her world. I looked at the photo and couldn't breathe. When I came home from the garage, my father was waiting for me in the hallway. He looked at me as if he knew I had opened the box, and he just said, "The garage is closed. Forget you went there." I didn't answer. I walked past him, and for the first time in my life I felt fear. Real, physical fear of him. That evening, I hid the documents under my mattress. The next day my father woke me up at 6 in the morning, as if by accident, but I could see that he was checking my room. Now I was sure. My parents knew I had found something, and they were ready to do anything to keep it from coming out. But I continued to search, because if I was officially removed from my family because of a threat to life, whose life was in danger? Mine? And who were these people I had considered my parents for 15 years? First, I went to the school library. There was an old computer with access to the city archives, and I hoped to find something. But my name did not appear in any section related to birth in the archives. However, I found something else. In the local news from 15 years ago, there was a short note. A 2-year-old boy was found alone in a forest near the county border. Investigators suspect a family incident. The photo was blurry, but I recognized myself in my blue pajamas. The article said that the boy was in satisfactory condition, but parents not identified. So, I didn't appear in this town as a child, but as a foundling? I left the library in such a state that I didn't immediately realize someone was calling me. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Langley. She had always been a warm, jovial woman. But now, she looked at me differently. She asked, "Have they finally told you?" At that moment, time seemed to stand still. She knew, and I realized the truth was close, and it was scarier than I had thought. Mrs. Langley and I moved away from the house. She looked at me as if she were allowing herself to speak the truth for the first time. She said she remembered the day my parents brought me in. I was dirty, frightened, crying nonstop. She thought something terrible had happened, but my parents told everyone that everything was under control and the child was just lost. But most importantly, she assured me that until that day, they had never mentioned that they had a child. She had known them for many years, but suddenly, out of the blue, they brought me and said I was their son. I asked if she had suspected anything. She replied, "Suspect? I was sure. But back then, no one would have dared to interfere with them, especially your father." Her words sent a chill down my spine. When I got home, my mother was sitting in the kitchen, staring blankly, as if she knew that time was up. And suddenly, she said something that shattered my last illusions. "Your father said, if you ask one more question, he'll just take you away. And this time, no one will find you." It wasn't fear, it was a warning. After talking to my mother, I realized I had to leave. Not just my home, this life, where every detail was a lie. I packed my backpack, hid my documents under my clothes, and waited for my parents to fall asleep. But I couldn't leave. At exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, the door to my room opened. My father was standing in the doorway. He didn't turn on the light. He just stood in the dark and watched. And he said quietly, "You're digging too deep." I froze. He walked over to me, sat on the edge of the bed, and his voice was so calm that it was even more frightening. "There are things you cannot change, and there are things you don't need to know." I didn't say a word. He got up and left, but before closing the door he added, "We'll talk tomorrow." I didn't sleep until dawn. And the next day I decided, if they won't let me leave, I'll find the truth right here, even if my father stands in the way of my every step. I began to study the documents I had found. The social services form had a note. Reason for removal: domestic violence, attempted harm. But then there was a confidential report, crossed out with a black marker. However, on the back of the report, I saw the employee's number and the phone number of the county child welfare office. I called there from a classmate's phone. I said, "I need information on case number such and such." The response was cold. "That information is not available. The case is closed and sealed." I asked why, and the woman on the line said something that felt like a blow. Cases are usually sealed when a child needs to be hidden from their biological parents. This meant that someone was trying to find me or harm me, and then I realized that I wasn't just found in the woods. I was being hidden, and most importantly, from whom? I found the answer at night when I was sorting through the photos again. In one photo, where I was little, there was a man standing in the reflection of the window. It was my current father. He was there, in that family, before he found me. This thought turned everything upside down. If my father was there, then he knew my biological family, and that meant that what happened 15 years ago was no accident. I looked at the photo again, zooming in on the reflection on my phone. And yes, the posture, the silhouette, the line of his shoulders, it was him. I realized I had to ask my mother about it. When my father went to the shop, I sat down next to her on the sofa. She was trembling even before I opened my mouth. I told her about the photo, about the archive, about the report, and I asked her directly, "What did my father do?" She cried. Not like a person who repents, but like a person who had been held in prison for many years. And she said, "You weren't an abandoned child. You were hidden. They wanted to get rid of you, but he intervened." "I didn't understand," she added. "He said that since they couldn't handle you, he would. That you should be in our family, that it would be right." And then I asked the terrible question. Did he take me by force? She bit her lip, covered her face with her hands, and just nodded. It was an admission, a heavy one, a final one. And it led to only one conclusion. My father didn't save me. He stole me. I remembered every word my mother said, but I couldn't quite believe it. It all sounded like a nightmare, from which there must be a way out. I decided to check the last thing that might shed some light on the situation. To return to the forest where I had been found. I took the bus there. I stood among the trees, trying to remember anything. Of course, it was impossible. But I noticed a concrete well with a faded danger sign. And next to it was a stone with an old inscription left by someone. It was almost worn away. I looked closely. They were initials. E.W. My mum said my real name was Evan Wells. It was the first name on the social services report. Those initials were mine, so the place I had come to wasn't random. They found me here, officially. Suddenly, someone called my name. I turned around. My father was standing on the path. He had come for me. He had been watching, and he said something that sounded so calm that I felt worse than ever. You've come to where it all began. He didn't ask why I was here. He knew. And that meant he knew what had happened here 15 years ago. We stood facing each other. I wanted to ask why he had done it, but before I could even open my mouth, he spoke first. I won't let them take you back, he said. I didn't understand who he was talking about. My biological parents? Social services? Someone else? He came closer. His voice was quiet, oppressive. You think I'm the enemy, but I'm the only one who didn't let you die. I finally asked. Who are you saving me from? He replied. From those who wanted to kill you. Those words hit me in the chest. I said I had seen the reports. I had seen the photos. I had seen that he was in that family. He wasn't surprised. He just exhaled. Yes, I was there. I tried to take you away legally, but they wouldn't give you up, so I took you myself. I asked, but why? The answer was terrifying. Because you were a child worth fighting for. But they weren't fighting for your life. They were fighting to end it. They didn't need you. I wanted to hear the details, but he wouldn't give them to me. He came close and said, if you keep digging, it will happen again. I realized that he wasn't warning me about himself. He was warning me about those from whom he had saved me. I pushed my father away and ran. I ran as if everything I had learned was chasing me. On the way, I called social services, the police, the archives, but they all said the same thing. Your case is closed, protected, inaccessible. So someone really had hidden everything and done it thoroughly. I went back to Mrs. Langley. She let me in right away, as if she had been waiting for me. I asked her directly. Did my biological parents really try to harm me? She sighed heavily and said, I don't know what's true and what's false. But I saw your father bring you here and he wasn't a savior. He was a man who did something irreparable. That's not an answer. It's another shadow. I asked, did he steal me? She replied, I think yes. But I also think something else. Whoever you were before, you are not that child now. And the truth you are looking for may no longer exist in its pure form. But I couldn't stop, and then she gave me an envelope, an old one dated 15 years ago. She said, your father came to us that night. He left this and asked us not to show it to anyone. But now it's your turn to know. Inside was a letter. One, short, from a woman named Megan Wells. She wrote, if he comes for Evan again, don't give him up. I sat there with the letter in my hands and felt my world crumbling. So my real parents had tried to get me back. So my father hadn't been saving me. He had been running away from them. He had been hiding me. I went home that same night to tell them I knew everything. But the house was empty. The backpacks were gone. The documents were gone. Even the photos of us as a family had been torn from the walls. Only a note lay on the kitchen table. You ruined everything. No signature. I called the police, social services. Everyone started checking, investigating, searching. But after a month, they told me there was almost no chance of finding them. I now live with a temporary foster family. I am learning to rebuild my life, and I am trying to understand who I was, who I have become, and who I should become. The truth turned out to be scarier than the lie I had been living for 15 years. But at least I know one thing. I am no longer a prisoner of the people who called themselves my parents. And now I want to hear your opinion. What do you think really happened? Who should I believe, the reports or my father? Write your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more stories.